Good morning. It is time to go live. It's past time to go live. I looked down and then I looked up. It was 8:03. Holy mackerel. What is going on? Good morning. Gotta check the streams. Good on Twitch. Good. Good on YouTube. All right. We are back in it. Good morning. It is Wednesday, April 16th at 8:03 a.m. Central Standard Time. My name is Keith, and I am here to hang out. Here to hang out with you while you're getting out job applications. So I started the stream as a place to kind of encourage and bolster people who are out in the job search, helping them stay focused and stay consistent. Somebody to hang out with on those rough days when it didn't seem like you're getting any response to your job applications. That consistency is key. You just got to get out there and hustle every day. I'm not here every day. I'm here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, broadcasting from Austin, Texas. And we do two things on the stream. We look at job trends in the tech space, specifically in the internet developer space. And we look at news. It's a bit of a light news day, so we'll probably be poking around looking for some random stories today, but we can jump straight in and look at the job numbers. Let's start here. We have, in the last 7 days, seen a slight uptick, but that is not necessarily great news because you can see if we look at the 6-month graph, really we hit a low for the year. So this is just a bit of a bounce in the last 7 days from a low, a 2025 low. And if we look at the last year, we can see that we're considerably lower than we were this time last year, probably 50% lower. I'm going to pick a number out of the hat. So it is a tough job market. There are still jobs being posted every day. There are still people getting jobs offers every day, but there's more people looking and less jobs available. So you got to get up there. You got to work every angle that you can, and you got to stay consistent, as challenging as it is. All right, let's hit LinkedIn. I always like to hit LinkedIn because that's where recruiters hang out, but also they've got a nice little news feed here, which oftentimes has a number of good stories that give us a clue about what's going on in both the tech worlds and the wider business world that might affect us. First up, it's day 2. Yesterday was day 2 of the Zuckerberg FTC antitrust trial that could rewrite the rules around corporate acquisitions. Continued for a second day with further testimony from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The FTC contends that Meta monopolized the social networking market. Monopolized the social networking market by purchasing Instagram and WhatsApp in 2012-2014. Facing questions on Tuesday, Zuckerberg said he considered spinning off Instagram in 2018, amid concerns it was negatively impacting Facebook. He also said at the time he expected the company to be broken up within 5 to 10 years. That's an interesting quote. That's an interesting quote. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. He, we talked a little yesterday about how this probably should have been done in 2016 to 2018. It shouldn't have taken this long for them to figure out that maybe mergers and acquisitions at this level are not a good thing. But, here we are. Sometimes the wind blows in one direction. From an administration standpoint. And the other thing about these kind of trials is that in order to take on a company as large as Meta, just getting the documentation together, the subpoenas, trying to understand all the things at play, that is a multi-year process, right? Less if you do it earlier in the process and you don't have 15 years worth of emails to go through to figure out if there was any bad faith stuff going on. But as a company as large as this, just finding out all the facts that it takes to make a decision is a huge process, multi-year process. And again, we live in a political system where there's a flip-flop every 4 to 8 years in terms of who is in charge and their opinions on mergers and acquisitions. And the tech industry could change on a dime when a new administration comes in. So there's certainly a lot of hope from Mark Zuckerberg that him sidling up to the new administration and donating money to the inauguration party might stave off this kind of trial, but clearly that didn't happen. The thing about it is this generation, the Googles, the Facebooks, they were well versed in the previous generation, the Apples, the Microsofts, and how they, approached the tech industry. In some ways, they're like that third generation of tech industry. So the original ones were like Xerox and IBM, and then Microsoft and Apple came in and ate their lunch. They were big, IBM, Xerox, and these kind of companies, first generation technology companies that utilize computers. They were large. They didn't move very quickly. They didn't see the competition on the horizon. And IBM could have bought Apple, could have bought Microsoft at a point in their young life, and could have just shut them down or incorporated them into the family and took all their IP and all their smart people. Could have stayed on top, but they didn't. They thought they were the 800-pound gorilla and nothing could unseat them. And so their hubris meant that even though Xerox is still around and IBM is still around, they don't hold the same sway. And they fought their way back into the conversation in different ways, but they're still not Microsoft. They're not Apple. And so every generation that came after that is now aware of that. It's like one of the ways that you make sure you stay on top once you get on top is to buy out your competition and incorporate their ideas into your ideas. And, co-ops, because again, you're sitting on so much cash. Companies like Apple have got hundreds of billions of dollars of cash just sitting around. What are they supposed to do with that? Give it to shareholders? What are they supposed to do with that? Hire more people? That sounds silly. Why would you even think that? No, they use it when they can to purchase their competition and put them out of business, right? And so for the last 20 years, this has been the moat that large capital wielding companies have utilized. And Zuckerberg was, he was in part of that last generation that understood that. And so, he tried to buy a company. If he wasn't able to buy the company, he'd buy, every company he could, and the companies he couldn't buy from, he'd steal their ideas. So, yeah, here we are. Here we are. This is inevitable in a lot of ways, right? What happens? We'll see. We shall see. ChatGPT social network in the works. This is interesting. Last couple of weeks we've been hearing that they're coming after search. Now they're coming after social. They got a big tens of billions of dollars influx of cash, and so now they're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. In the process of building a social network centered around ChatGPT, The Verge reports, while it's still in the early stages of development, an internal prototype features a social feed but built around image generation. A ChatGPT-based social network would compete with Meta, potentially intensifying the already fraught rivalry between the ex-owner Elon Musk and OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman, who have exchanged lawsuits over ChatGPT's plan to shift from non-profit to for-profit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that would be like. Companies at this size, they got lots of money. They can just experiment, throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks. This is true for Google. This is true for Facebook. All these large companies, they got a ton of money, and they don't know what's next. So, yeah, they're running lots of experiments. Apple had a TV in the works for many years. They had a car in the works for many years, none of which came to fruition. This is just the nature of the beast. People are always looking at patent, at applications by large companies to kind of get a sense of like, ooh, where are they going? Let's read the tea leaves and figure out, what the next thing is. Whether this will ever see the light of day, probably not. I mean, I just don't see the benefit. Zuckerberg not too long ago said that he could foresee a world where your social media graph is built just for you, and there are a whole bunch of AI friends, quote unquote, that are in your feed, mixed in with your real IRL friends, and they're all there to kind of boost you and say, let you, make you feel like you've got a great life. They're all saying the most supportive and encouraging things to you in order to keep you on the platform. I just don't see that as really having much meat. Maybe. Certainly wouldn't with me. I'm not that social media person, but so I'm probably the last person to make any kind of pronouncement about it, but it just doesn't feel like that is something people would be all that interested in. I don't know. Any opinions? I hope I hit the chat. Any chat? Nope. Feel free to jump in, make a comment or two in the chat. I'm happy to have a conversation about it. There's a new story about Anthropic's Claude can now read your Gmail, and announced on Tuesday that its AI chatbot Claude now integrates with Google Workspace, allowing it to search and reference your emails in Gmail, schedule events in Google Calendar, and documents in Google Docs. Max, Team, Enterprise, and Pro plans. Administrators managing multi-user accounts must enable the integration on their end before users can connect. It's an interesting idea. I don't use Workspace. But there's a lot of ideas where you could, utilize it in a way that some people use Zapier and that kind of thing for automation. If you can have access to incoming emails, filtering out. I'm on a ton of mailing lists every year. Towards the Christmas time, I always spend a few days going through all my old email and unsubscribing from emails, but they start to creep up, these newsletters. And I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is delete 30 emails without looking in. And it's only April, so having something to sort of monitor that and do a better job of paying attention to the kind of things I like would be beneficial. And also have the ability to summarize. Like, there are a lot of emails that I do, like, oh, I want to look at this one because it's a newsletter that always has good stories in it, or often has good stories in it, and to have it summarize that so I could see, oh, I don't have to wade through the whole email. I get the thumbnail, but it's looks like it's only geared towards enterprise, which sort of makes sense. Let's see what's on Google News. Late night revels in Harvard rejection of Trump's demands. Harvard is a joke. So yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this yesterday as I was on my walk around the neighborhood. That Doge, it came back that Doge has found hundreds of $1 million instead of trillions of dollars like they expected, and at the same time, I'm hearing these stories about $2 billion that's not going to Harvard. And if enough schools tell the president gets stuffed, like, you might end up saving more in tax dollars from Harvard not getting $2 billion than Doge ever could have found by letting go of some mid-level government employees who've been working for us for years. You want to find waste in the system. The U.S. government giving money to Harvard when they're sitting on $1 trillion fund, like, yeah, give it to 100,000 different community colleges before you give it to Harvard, for God's sakes. And I'm sure we're doing some of that also, but again, elite schools don't need our subsidizing in the same way that oil companies don't need our subsidizing, and there's plenty of money that could be curtailed, but mostly goes to people and organizations and industries with lots of lobbyists. So, and nobody wants to touch that third rail. U.S. to take legal action against Maine over Trump executive order on transit patents. The problem with vibe coding. What is the problem with vibe coding? People don't understand what it is. That's the problem. Are you vibe coding? Wink Martindale dies. If you're under the age of 40 and you probably never heard the name Wink Martindale, but that was always a name that cracked me up as a kid. Wink Martindale, game show host. Yeah. See what's going on in tech. Phones. When I hit the tech page, it's always just phones and video games. Phones and video games. You gotta dig in. Android's going to reboot for you after 3 days for making sure you get the latest security updates. ChatGPT now has a library to save your images. That's good. This has been my biggest beef. I've been a professional developer for 30 plus years, and most of my focus in the last 20 years has been on UI and UX as a front end developer. And the one thing that we in the UI and UX space complain about all the time is how awful all the AI interfaces are. They're just the worst, designed by engineers. One of the things we've been talking about is like one day that somebody's going to get that right, and they're not going to have the best technology, but they're going to win just because they've got a better interface. So much room for innovation there. But it's true. I was looking for, what was I looking for yesterday? I created an image on the weekend, and I went back and the image wasn't there. Like there was I could see where I asked for the image, and then the image was not there, and then below there was another request for another image, and that image was there. And I know I had the image there, but I didn't save it off. What I did was I copied it and pasted it into Photoshop. I was using it, but I wanted the original image, and just disappeared into the ether. It's probably a different issue, but having one place where I could go and look at all my images. Because that's the thing. You develop these images in different chats. And again, lousy. One thing that's been a huge annoyance to me with ChatGPT is it doesn't date your searches. And the filtering for search is just, simple text search. And sometimes I'm like, I'll search on a specific topic, many times over the course of months because of projects I'm working on. And then trying to be able to filter, like, I don't want to see this search term, any more recent than October, because what I'm specifically looking for is, there. Like these kind of, quality of life features are something we need for power users like myself who do use ChatGPT, if not every day, 6 days a week for sure. That is a lot of random chats. Yesterday was tax day. I did my taxes 2 weeks ago, but coming up to that, I had a bunch of questions about this and that, and I should be able to group those together and archive them, because I'm not going to need those again. They're just filling up my feed with a bunch of nonsense. Need these quality of life features. But they're too busy working on that latest model. They got all the cash in the world, but they don't see a need to spare it for UI and UX. I don't get it. It's frustrating. What else have we got? How are we doing on time? We're good at the end here. Saw this. NVIDIA announces RX 5060 graphics cards to be priced from $299. Tom's Hardware always does a good job. I just got a 4060 about a year ago. So I'm not upgrading anytime soon, but that's curious. State Dragon 1, Baldur's Gate 3. Oh, I saw this that Google's Veo 2 is going to be added now. Um, I have not done very much text to video or image to video stuff, but I'm starting to put together the trailer for my game I'm be launching on Steam in a little over 2 months. A little over 2 months. I'm in a bit of analysis paralysis around when I'm launching my game. It's going to be after Steam Next Fest, but the question is how much after? Because there's Steam Next Fest and then there's a sale. Do you want to have it before the sale? So after Next Fest gets a bunch of wish lists, you release it. But if you release it before the sale, wouldn't people just wait until the sale to buy it? Presuming that there'd be I don't know. I'm up in the air. I haven't figured it out yet. I picked a date, but I may push it back a couple of weeks. Well, here we go. We're getting down to the end of it. My name is Keith. If you're late joining the stream late, and I have been a professional developer, as the scrolling feed says, for over 30 years. I created this stream as a place to hang out while you're getting job applications out. If you know anybody who's in the tech job search, doesn't have to be a programmer, but it's tough to get up and stay motivated every day. Sometimes it just needs a buddy to hang out with. And this is a place that can. So please feel free to share the stream and connect with me on LinkedIn if you have not. Always looking to grow my network. I will be back in 23 hours and 30 minutes as we slide into the back half of this week. And as I look at my calendar, yeah, lots to be done. Okay, guys, have a great week. Have a great day.